and then one of the areas of their brain was actually bigger. So it's kind of like muscle. Like you go to
Yeah,
the gym, you train your biceps. After a few
yeah.
months, your biceps gonna grow. The same thing. You train your memory, try to like focus, and then try to memorize faster. Try to push yourself mentally, and then your brain actually grows.
So, welcome to another episode of my podcast. Today, I have a special guest. His name is Shijir Bat. He's from Mongolia, correct?
Yep.
The last thing I did of my bucket list, the challenge, was to memorize a deck of cards. And Shijir happens to be the world record owner for that challenge, and he memorized it in 13.73 seconds. Was it?
12.74.
Oh, 12.74. So when I saw that video from YouTube, my first idea was, first of all, how did you do it? And second, I want to talk to that guy. I got your contact, and here we are. So first of all, thank you for taking the time to talk to me, and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Jonas, for inviting me. Excited to be here. Yeah.
Okay, let's dive right in. I have a question for you. Are you a genius?
The simple answer is no, absolutely not. I never like did super well in school. I mean, I was always pretty good at like mathematics and some logical thinking, physics, stuff like that, but I was never like a genius. I often used to like forget a lot of things. I was a clumsy, lazy kid. But the memorizing the deck of card actually, I learned it. It's a skill. So I think anyone can learn that skill and practice it and get to that level.
I know some basics of it now, and there's like two versions of memory. One is like what we're brought up with, is kind of like you either have a good memory or you don't. And the second one is what I'm realizing now, once after I got more into this, is that it's a skill, right? So you can train it like any other skill, but for some reason that's not how people approach their memory. How did you discover it, or how did you get into it?
Right. So for me, it was pretty straightforward. I was in high school in Mongolia, and then there was this like memory school in Mongolia called Mongolian Intellectual Academy, and they had like some lessons that like they trained some kids, like high school kids, for a few months, and then if you're good enough, then you can go compete in this memory competitions. At that time, I didn't know what memory competitions was. I thought it was gonna be like uh, pretty like simple or like pretty small competition, but it turned out to be pretty big, like World Memory Championship. It's been happening since 1994, so it's been what, 28 years, and the competition, prize pool, sponsors, it was a really big competition. So when I discovered that, I just wanted to like compete there and then like see what I can do, because I saw this one guy on TV, like he was giving an interview, and then I just thought I want to be able to do what he can do, and then went to the school, learned the techniques. It took me like 6 months before my first competition. I did very badly. I think I got like third from the last place or something. And then I trained even harder, and then like a few months later, I went to like the Asian Memory Championship. I also did pretty bad. I didn't win anything, and then like I almost gave up. I thought I'm just stupid, like I can't do it. And then I thought, okay, let me just give it one more try, one more competition. And if I do bad in that, then I'll just quit. And then I trained for like 4 more months, and then I went to like the World Memory Championship, because fortunately I was qualified before the Asian Championship, and then I finally did pretty good, and then broke some world records, won some prizes, and then
Okay, but what time span was that? Like, how old were you when you started?
So when I first like learned about memory technique, I was 13, I think. And then I practiced for a full year before my first world championship. So I was 14 for my first world championship. So it took me roughly 1 year of training, and the amount of training I did was I tried to do at least 2 or 3 hours a day, then try to take like no days off. So.
Okay. One thing that caught my attention, you said there's like a memory school in
Right.
in Mongolia, but how did that happen? Or is it like a big thing in Mongolia then, or
Right.
why is it big there?
Right. So the history about that uh, memory school in Mongolia is that there's so our school president is a guy named Katan Bader, and then he used to go to school in Turkey. He was I think doing his master's in Turkey. And then in Turkey, actually, like memory sports or mental calculation is a big thing because in Turkey they all have like mental Olympiads, mental competitions, and like who can like these like 5-year-old kids multiplying 10-digit number by another 10-digit number in like 2 seconds or something. They're like pretty good at those kind of stuff. And then so basically the school president when he was in Turkey when he was in college, he like saw those kids on TV, and then he was just curious, just like you. And then he tried to contact the guy who was like teaching the memory stuff and the mental calculation stuff in Turkey, and then he just learned everything from him. He came back to Mongolia, founded his own school. I think that was in 2010, and so I joined the school 3-4 years after.
That's kind of, I mean, I think that should be in every country. No, because it's like it's a beneficial thing because every country has a school system, but they teach you how to, they just teach you, but they don't teach you how to learn or memorize or use the, like one thing that I felt when I was doing my challenge was that it's kind of like I've had a Ferrari of a memory all my life, but I've been just told, and I treated it like it was a Volkswagen, you know. It's capable of way more. I just don't know how to use it. And it's like it was instant. It's not like I had to train really hard, but as soon as I understood how the technique works, it worked immediately. It was like magic, kind of.
I think like the reason why memory techniques works is that the main reason why all this kinds of memory technique works is that it just exploits the fact that our brain actually remembers meaningful stuff, right? But when we're like going through a deck of cards or going through random numbers or going through random images, our brain can't like assign meaning to them, right? Like 5 of clubs doesn't have any meaning in our brain. So all these memory techniques does is just try to make everything meaningful for our brain so that it just remembers. And I guess I still don't know how or why our brain remembers them so well.
It's kind of like shocking also. Like I did the PAO system, PAO, yeah. And it's whatever story you come up in your head, I still walk around, I see those things in my apartment because it's just very drastic. It's never boring, yeah. But let's get into the technical side a little bit and your world record attempt. One thing, when you were there and you were preparing, did you know at the time that you were capable of a world record, or was it a complete surprise for you?
I've definitely broken the world record a few times in my training, I think. So that video is actually 2018 Korean Memory Championship, and I think it was in August. So that winter, 2018 winter, I decided to like start competing again because I took a break for like 1.5 years, 2 years before that. So I haven't trained for 2 years, but I started training in January. I trained for roughly like 6-7 months until August. And then during my training, I broke I think at that time the world record was 13.6 by Tulu Jen, like the Chinese memory athlete guy. And I've done like a couple 12 something, 13 somethings in my training. So I knew like if I'm very lucky and if it's a good day for me, I might be able to break it. But it was mostly just yeah, I mean, I didn't mean to break the world record. It's just
I didn't mean to, but you accidentally did. So
yeah,
modest.
it's like when I go through the cards, sometimes like the PAA combinations, like the technically 52 cards turn into 17 different like small stories, right? And then during that memorization attempt, somehow those stories were like really smooth and like I didn't have to spend much time on them. So
there was a little bit of luck involved with the order of the cards.
Yeah, like some of the stories, like I'm very familiar with like some of my people or actions. I like spend no time for them, but some other actions or people object combinations are more complex. But
I have a question for you. Do you still remember your world record attempt? Like, do you still
what, the
remember
cards,
that deck? Yeah.
the cards, I only remember 6 cards out of those 52 cards. What happened was that in the middle there was this. I remember the story. Like these 3 cards are one story, and these 3 cards are one story. But
Okay.
I forgot if this one was first or this one was first. It was this or this.
Okay.
So I made a guess because I just couldn't remember it, and then it was correct, and I was so happy. And I thought to myself, that's so lucky. I would never forget those 6 cards. There was some luck factor to it. Like I was lucky, but also like I made those decisions based on my instincts and my gut feelings. So maybe
Okay.
it's not luck, but
like
there.
it stay at home, or what was your stable average at the time? Let's say the world record was 12 point something. What was your average?
I was consistently doing like 13-ish, like somewhere between
Okay,
13
so
and 14.
still super
But that
close.
attempt, I went a little bit faster because the 9 previous events, I fucked up all my 9 events from all the other attempts. So
Yeah.
I had no chance of winning the championship at that point. So I just thought to myself, I don't have to go safe. I'm just gonna go all or nothing. So
That's kind of cool, though. Imagine if you were still competing for the overall win, and because of the pressure, you would not have
Oh
given
yeah,
your
I
all.
wouldn't have gone like for a world record at all. I would have done like
Here's a
stage 20 or
lesson.
something.
Here's a lesson for everyone. It's okay.
Mess up all your previous things, and then just go to a state where you just say fuck it.
Yeah. Could you explain to someone who's maybe listening and doesn't have any idea about memory techniques, what is happening in your head? Like a normal person sees a deck of cards. What do you see when you go through the deck?
So it's pretty simple actually. So there's 52 cards in one deck, and all 52 cards have a face value and a suit value, right? So it could be 5 of clubs or 6 of diamonds. Each of those 52 cards are like they're assigned a mental image in my brain. So whenever I look at 7 of diamonds, I see hook. Whenever I look at Queen of Hearts, I see my mom, for example. So all
Same
those
for
50,
me.
Yeah, Queen of Hearts is usually
Yeah,
mom
it's a
for
very
everyone.
typical one. Yeah.
Yep. And technically, when all these cards are objects, all I'm doing is I'm just reading through these words, and then I'm just visualizing in my head very vividly. How you visualize is pretty complex. You try to make it as funny as possible, as dramatic as possible. And then after you read through the 52 cards, I just close my eyes and then try to remember what happened in the stories. And then recalling the cards is I got the story, and I have to convert the stories back into the order of the deck of cards.
Okay. But the thing that I found a little bit difficult, or what I had to train, was that it's easier to imagine something in my head if I close my eyes, right? But if I'm going through the deck, my eyes are open. So how do you manage to keep your eyes open going through the deck, and as you're going through, you need to imagine it very, very clear? Is it something that just comes with experience and training, or
yeah,
do you have a trick for it?
I would say it comes with training, because when I first started out, the first time I learned PAO technique, my first attempt took me like 10, 20 something like minutes, and then I was picking 3 cards, closing my eyes, imagining it, and then open it, go to the next 3 cards, close my eyes. That's how I learned, and then I did that until I was under like 3-4 minutes, and after that I realized that if I want to go fast, then closing my eyes, opening is just wasting time. I just forced myself to like keep looking at the cards while memorizing. It's usually mostly just practice.
Okay.
I must have spent at least like a few thousand hours just memorizing cards. So maybe
how was your social life at the time?
I was friends with the kids who trained with me for memory competitions, but other than that, I didn't have any time for other social life events.
I guess that's the sacrifice you need to make when you want to be the best at something.
Yeah, I mean, that time it was just really bugging me that I couldn't do what the other kids are doing. So, because usually in my mind, like I was a pretty confident kid, and I just thought if I see someone doing something, I just think, oh, I also want to do that. I can do that. I want to try doing it. That's just like my first instinct. But this memory thing, like I failed multiple times. I trained so hard. I trying so hard, but I still can't like win competitions. So that was just.
So you're a very competitive person, right? Because I noticed that when we started talking and you said like, oh, I entered my first competition and I came like third from the bottom, you felt like you completely failed. So you go to a world level competition, which is your first one, and if you finish third from the bottom, it's a complete failure for you. Like a lot of people would say, I did all right, but for you, it's either first or nothing.
I mean, I think that's how every like winners are thinking, right? But I think I mean, it's not necessarily that I expected myself to win in those competitions. Like I knew compared to like the top athletes, I wasn't like anywhere near them. But the part where I was disappointed was that in training, let's say I was getting consistently like memorizing a deck card in like 40 seconds. But in the tournament, because I was nervous and there was all these distractions, or like because it was my first competitions, all these external factors affected me, and I couldn't do what I was able to do in training. So I ended up doing like a full deck of card in a minute 30 seconds instead of 40 seconds. So that part was disappointing for me.
But how did you learn to get over the nerves? Because I guess a lot of people have that they can do something in their secure environment at home, but then when they're exposed to real life, whether it's public speaking or any kind of competition, you can completely fall apart when you have someone measuring time, or you have attention, or even the world record attempt. I noticed that you saw that they were filming, or like you looked at the camera for a second. So it's like there's so many eyes on you, and yet you still managed to perform at the top level. Like how do you calm your nerves at that moment?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I wouldn't actually say I completely figured it out by now. I think I get nervous every time I go to competitions. Every time like the referees say you can start memorizing now, like then you have to flip the page and actually start memorizing. My heart usually goes racing when that happens. But all I've learned is that you just get used to it. I think human behavior, like natural human behavior, is that you experience something intense, but if you keep experiencing it multiple times in a row, then just your body get used to it. And then yeah, my first like 3 or 4 competitions, it was really bad. I remember there's this one event called Spoken Numbers, where the computer has to say out loud a random digit every second. So it's like 5, 9, 0, 8, 4. And then you have to close your eyes and try to memorize those sequence of numbers as far as possible. And I was pretty good at it in training. I used to be able to do like 300-400 digits. But in competition, when the computer actually started saying it out loud, I was so nervous while I was memorizing that I can like hear my heart racing, like I can hear my heart louder than the computer sound. And that's how I lost distraction and actually lost the event.
But it's kind of crazy when it comes at a tempo, because then like once you get behind the tempo, you're lost. I remember like I play guitar. And I used to play at home just for fun, playing myself. And the first time I needed to record something and the metronome was like ticking, I know I can play that song. But because of the metronome, I completely fucked it up, because there's extra pressure. That there's a slight little fault or mistake, and then the whole thing falls apart. So I guess that's a similar thing that's happening during competitions now.
Yeah, it's like spoken number is brutal. Like if you get distracted for like 0.5 seconds, you're done. Like you have to be focused 100% of the time. It's pretty tough. I used some techniques to calm myself. Usually at the beginning of every event, I close my eyes. In the competitions, they give you 1 minute mental preparation time for memorizing. So when that 1 minute countdown starts, I usually just close my eyes and then try to visualize like a white plane, like a world in my head, and then it's just filled with like white like gas or clouds. And then like once I actually start memorizing, I just like imagine the the white clouds like clearing up the world, and then it's like white plain world, and I just try to like put all my stories on those white things so that like it's, I guess, more vivid.
One question I have for you is like, how do you clean out your memory palaces, or or you just have a bunch of memory palaces? Because I had a
Yeah.
couple, and then I was like, I wonder if I can like clean them out and use them again, or no.
You can't forcefully clean them out, right? That's not how brain works. You just gotta let I guess brain do its job. So yeah,
Because I still remember my deck of cards that I remember, like I memorized it once. It was like 2 weeks ago, and it's still clear as day in my head.
yeah,
So
you just have to have multiple memory palaces that you
yeah,
can like switch out.
yeah,
And yeah, that's actually a big problem when you're training for a competition, because you're trying to train every day.
yeah.
But if you're still remembering the thing you memorized yesterday, and then you use the same memory palace today, and then you still remember both yesterday's story and today's story,
Yeah.
then there's like this ghost. You don't know which one is the ghost image. So that happens a
Ironically,
lot.
the issue then is that you remember it too good, and then you want to force yourself to forget, which is very counterproductive to them.
Yeah, I mean, training for competitions is weird, right? Like in real life, if we're memorizing something, it's usually a useful information, and we want to
Yeah.
keep that information in our mind, in our long-term memory. But
Yeah.
when we're training for a competition, like memorizing a deck of cards, like it's not useful at all. I'm just like testing my like speed, and then I just want to forget it, and then I just want to memorize more and then forget. But our brain doesn't have built-in, like we can't just like force delete stuff. So it's
Yeah. Like the competition element is like, it's kind of completely different, because if you whatever you take, you can take any hobby, and if you put it to world level, it becomes competitive, and then it's kind of very far and distant from daily life. So what would you say that maybe someone listening is thinking like, okay, cool, you can memorize a deck of cards or 100 decks of cards, but what is the daily benefit? Has it changed you or influenced your daily life or benefited you in any way in like normal life outside of competitions?
yeah. So as I said before, I learned all these memory techniques, and then I specifically trained for this memory tournament competitions, right? And then after like winning some competitions, a lot of people were asking the same question. Okay, that's great that you can memorize a deck of cards or these numbers, but what about like, does it help you in school? Does it help you in life? And I guess the answer is yes, it does, but only if you put the effort in. Because, for example, like you learn PAO, right?
Yeah.
But if you were to use PAO for other things, like let's say you're a student, but you're trying to use PAO technique for memorizing math equations, it doesn't work, right? Like the technique is specifically designed for
Yeah.
memorizing cards or numbers, but like math equations, it doesn't apply. And but since you learned PAO and you learned how your brain works, you can actually build your own memory technique to memorize whatever's you're trying to memorize, whether it's math equation, historic dates, or like map routes. Then you
Yeah.
can come up with your own technique on the spot, and then you can memorize those. So technically, for me, the one thing I used to do is when I'm like driving outside, and then you see all these cars have this license plate numbers. I try to just like memorize as much as possible. So I guess,
How many can you manage?
I mean, I can just like, as long as like the cars are going like at least like a few seconds uh, at a time, then it's pretty easy.
You would be like a perfect witness to a crime. So it's
Only
like,
if I'm focused and trying to memorize the
yeah,
car license
yeah.
numbers. And actually, other useful things, I think the most useful thing was when I was in school, like history classes are super easy because it's all about just facts, right?
Yeah,
1985, this happened. 1777, like December 12th, this happened, kind of thing.
yeah.
History classes are usually easy. Outside school, I use it to memorize. I have all my like driver license number or like bank routing number, some of my like passwords, like my legal document numbers, stuff like that. Like I've memorized them in my head. It comes in handy. And other than that, let's see. I guess when you meet a new people, there's an event called Names and Faces in tournament. So if you actually try to memorize every single name of the people you meet, then you can. Your brain can absolutely do that.
But does it become like easier for you, or is it effortless? Kind of
mm,
effortless for you now to memorize these daily things on the go?
yeah, it's pretty effortless. Just because like I train for the maximum, like the intense level of these things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm memorizing my bank routing number, that's like 10-digit number. But compared to like competition events, like I try to memorize 4,000, 3,000 numbers in 1 hour.
That's
So
insane.
compared to that, the intensity is way lower. Yeah.
So there's definitely like benefits.
Only if you're conscious of using it. Because for me, the
Yeah.
problem is that I always forget to memorize stuff. But if I'm like thinking, okay, if I tell myself I'm gonna memorize that, I can do it easily.
Yeah.
But I just forget to like remind myself to memorize it.
Maybe
That's
there's
the
a
problem.
technique for that.
I'm
Put a
not sure.
reminder on your phone.
Maybe they'll work.
Yeah. So, but wait, I had a question. Let me think what it was. It's funny that I forgot what the question was.
Lots of controversial things.
Oh yeah, I wanted to get back to the speed of how fast you memorize, because even now that I know the technique, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my first attempt, it was painfully slow, and I did it on purpose, painfully slow, because I didn't want to make any mistakes. So it took me 23 minutes, and I experienced the same thing. I was at home, and just because I was recording the video for YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
heart was pounding. I was alone in my living room, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and I started
Mm-hmm.
just like one card by one card, and after like maybe 20 cards, I got into it, and I did 3 at a time. But it's after I finished that, I was super happy with my 23 minutes. I still
Mm-hmm.
looked at your 13-second, 12 point something second clip, and it's just I still don't understand, like how can it happen so fast, the links.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah,
can you try to explain to me and other people, like I don't know how to ask the question, because I don't understand even how you do it.
yeah,
It's
just
it's so
how,
insane. It's impossible for me,
right?
even though
Yeah.
I know the method.
For me, how I approached the problem was that just like everyone else, I built my PAO system, and then
Mm,
I memorized my first deck of card. It took me 20 something minutes, same as you. And then I kept practicing maybe like half an hour every day for like 2 weeks. And then suddenly I'm under 5 minutes. And then I kept practicing, like memorize 2 decks of card every day. 2 months later, I'm under 1 minute.
mm,
And then once I was under 1 minute, at that point, like you can pretty much look at a card and then just like instantly tell the peg word of the
mm,
card. So like the speed that your brain looking at the card and converting that into the word and making up the story is pretty fast at that, right?
mm.
And then after that, after you're under, usually until like 40 seconds or 30 seconds, you can just keep training and you'll get there. But once you're under 30 seconds, then you have to make some adjustments to make your speed more efficient, right? So you have to look at some of the mechanical stuff, like how are you holding your deck of card? Like, is it efficient?
Mm.
And then like how are you moving the cards one by one? Like, is it optimal? Like, does your
Like
hand
the
get tired?
fine tuning.
Yeah, just like small like details, mechanical details. And then when you're under like 20 seconds, I think, is the problem where like you go through the story. So it's like Jason doing something.
Mm,
And that's the basic PO structure, right? Someone doing something, someone doing
mm.
something.
So
So
can you bring like an example? Let's say take 6 cards and then just say how you would remember it in your head. Like
right.
what's the
So
story?
let's see. I guess we can just come up with you can just tell me like a random card and I'll just say my story.
I'm gonna leave the Queen of Hearts out of it, because I don't want to make your mom do silly things, Jack of Clubs.
So Jack of Clubs, that's a pet I used to have, a dog. Yep.
Okay. 7 of Hearts.
Seven of Hearts, and that's breaking something. So my dog is breaking something, and what's the something?
And 10 of spades.
10 of spades is like a dumbbell. So my dog is breaking a dumbbell, right? I mean,
Okay.
that's a pretty simple thing. You can just like imagine your dog eating the dumbbell instead of a bone, but he got angry, so it's just like breaking it, like smashing it,
Mm.
and then just like complaining to you, this is not a bone, this is like not tasty at all, I'm gonna break it. And it's like being dramatic. But
But
that would take multiple seconds, right?
yeah,
Like,
exactly. Like
but how do
the
you do that in a point like 5 seconds, right?
yeah. How
And
do you do that in 0.5 seconds?
it's because all those training, like so my dog breaking a dumbbell, probably my dog probably broke something in my head before,
Mm.
if you know what I mean. So like during my trainings, the combination of my dog and the dumbbell or my dog breaking something, probably I had to memorize that story in my head somewhat,
Ah, okay.
like, I have to visualize it from scratch. I
Yeah,
already
yeah,
have
yeah,
like
yeah.
a mental image at the back of my head. So I just have to
Okay.
pull it out and then put it on the memory palace.
So that's kind of what you meant, that you got kind of, there was a good flow of cards in your world record attempt, that you got probably a bunch of cards that your brain was very used to seeing in your
Hmm.
training.
Yeah. So like, for example, like my best friend doing something, something, something. All those combinations are probably in my head. And when I look at those combination of cards, I don't have to think about anything or visualize about anything. Like I know what that story looks like. So I just have to pull it out of my memory and then just put it on
Mm.
the lock. So that's the part like where you don't have to visualize every single story from scratch, because most of it, if you train enough, like probability wise, the chances of you already like seeing the story is pretty high.
And is there any specific trick that you do to tie that person into your memory palace, or it's just the first thing that comes to your mind, or you have some specific method of putting that person into that place?
Um, for like longer events, like for 30-minute or hour events, you have to be more like delicate, right? Because you're gonna have like thousands of memory palaces, thousands of stories. So you have to
Mm.
make sure you really put the story on the memory palace. Like you have to really have to tie it. But for a speed card, there's only 17 memory palace locations you're going
Mm.
through. So I usually don't have to try too hard to put the story on my memory palace, because it's only 17, and it's like usually takes like 10, 20 seconds to memorize, and right after that I can like
Oh,
review it
yeah, yeah. Okay.
instantly. So that helps me a lot on not having to spend a lot of time on tying the location and the story.
Okay, that makes more sense now.
And there's a trick, like 52 cards, 17 stories, right? You can memorize the first 15, but the last two, like last 7 cards, you don't even have to memorize it. You can just like look at it, and then you can kind of like take a screenshot with their eyes and then like put the cards down so that your timer is actually stopped. And then after the timer is stopped, you can memorize the last 7 cards. It's kind of like,
Ah,
it's
okay.
not
Yeah,
cheating, but you're
I
just saving
saw
time on the last few cards.
I saw in your video as well that like the last 4 or 5, you closed it and you immediately closed your eyes. So it's kind of like, it looks like a very, like 12 seconds of one thing, but actually
Mhm.
it's a different, you have different ways of starting the middle part and the ending. It's all different little methods of how to do it as efficient as possible, right?
Yeah, usually for me, the problem, if I definitely have to remember my first story. So that's why I use the like the plain white world thing,
Mm.
just so that I don't forget my first story. And then my last story, I just take like a visual screenshot. And then, but that's also kind of risky, because usually like if I look at it just like a little bit, like if I flip the cards too fast, I
Mm.
can't read all 4 cards before I flip it. Then I have to guess. I have to guess.
Okay.
Like I remember the last card was some kind of red card that I just have to like guess some stuff, and that's honestly pretty risky.
Do you still compete, or you have left that thing in the past?
I haven't competed I haven't competed since 2018, so it's been 4 years. I haven't
And
been really training too. So
the world record attempt was also 2018, right?
Yep, that was my last competition that I competed in.
Oh, makes sense. It's like get the world record and then just drop the mic and leave the scene.
Not really. I was just busy with school since then. But I mean, COVID happened, and then all the memory competitions stopped happening, and then most of it was just online. And I don't really enjoy online memory competitions because the thrill of just like actually sitting to your next to your competitors, and, like waiting for the result. Yeah, there hasn't been just any competitions. Usually for me, if I want to get motivated to train, I need like a competition to train, I guess, motivate me. So that's just not been there. So since then, I've been just spending most of my time learning coding and working, finishing school, just everyday normal life.
It seems like the competition, especially, and I experienced it also with my minimum experience with the memory techniques, is it teaches you focus. Like what you're technically teaching yourself to do is to be focused and cutting out all the distractions. Like, do you feel that that benefits you in your work now as well?
It definitely does. I think that's probably the best benefit, right? When you're training for a competition, you have to sit down and memorize something. Memorizing means you have to be 100% focused on the thing. And then you have to recall what you just memorized. And that usually takes 3 hours, like 4 hours. So you have to sit still for 4 hours and be completely focused. And we keep doing that, keep repeating that. Your mind and body gets used to being focused. And then I think that's a great skill, especially in like nowadays, like our attention span is like really low because of social media and all these technologies. And I think the ability to actually sit down, focus, and get something done, even if you force yourself, like being able to do that, finish the task, is I think a tremendous, like, valuable ability.
I think it's interesting what you said, especially now when during the times of like social media and the attention span. And I see it with especially the younger generation, you know, but even with myself, because I think I was like the first generation to be exposed to social media at the age of like 13 or something, when I was 13. And it's crazy to see how far it has gone within like 10, 15 years. And when you take even social media platforms, they have gone from long-term or long format things to very short. Like TikTok is blowing up, and it's like it's teaching everyone to value short-term things because it's better for monetization, it's better for ads, it's better for everything. They don't want you to spend too much time on the screen looking at one thing while you could watch 10 things. But do you think it's dangerous, right? You're exposed as a kid to that, and then afterwards you don't really function in real life, because in real life you have to be focused long term if you actually want to achieve something.
Practicing memory techniques helps with people with focus. That's actually proven, and I think a lot of people would agree with that fact. And for me personally, what's interesting is that when I'm memorizing something, sometimes there would be like thoughts, like distracting thoughts that would come in. Like if I like hear someone like saying something next to me, then I get distracted for a second. But then the ability to like put yourself back on the spot and then tell yourself you're getting distracted, go back to work, focus on what you're supposed to do, and then being able to do that like multiple times in a row for hours. I think that's like a great ability. I know there's a lot of more like I guess ADHD people, and then I think there's a lot of symptoms. Like I even a lot of symptoms of that. Just like talking to someone, then spacing out, doing something, and then just suddenly like think about something else, and then just not being able to focus. I think it is definitely affecting almost everyone, and practicing memory technique, at least it's like like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, let's say, a day would definitely help a lot.
Like I asked you the question, like, yeah, you can memorize a deck of cards, but what's the real benefit, right? And I think it's kind of like if someone says, why would you go running or jogging if you have a car? Or like, why would you learn how to memorize something if you can save it on your phone? But it's kind of like if you train and if you work out, you feel better about your body and you feel kind of more connected to your body. And I think that if you train with memory techniques, even with my one attempt, I feel that I have a better relationship with my brain and with my memory, because it's just, I don't know, it gamified it kind of. And now I want to do it more. And it's not even about maybe the practical side, that I will remember someone's face and I will not, forget their name, but it's just about internally me having a better relationship with myself and my mind and my body. So I think there is like a distance that people are experiencing due to social media and all that. Everything is outward, right? And it's even if we take the epidemic of obesity, it's kind of the same, because people aren't paying attention to their bodies anymore in that sense. So I think working out is a solution to that, and training memory techniques or playing chess is just training your mind and not to get distant from that. Because often you see that people who get old, and when they stop working, they get old really fast. Like as soon as they stop putting pressure on their mind, in 1 year, they go gray and they just kind of disappear. Their personality and everything just slows down. Do you have any experience with people who are older, like let's say 60 plus, doing memory techniques? Does that benefit them?
Yeah. Memory competitions actually have 3 age categories, actually 4. The first one is kids age category. It's 0 to 12. And then there's junior age category, 13 to 18. And then there's adult age category, 19 to 65. And then there's also senior age category where 65 plus can compete. There's this Japanese guy, I think he's 70 something. And I seen him win 9 gold medals at the World Memory Championship. And definitely age doesn't matter. Like if you're like 65 plus year old, then you think, oh, it's too late for me to learn memory technique. That is a false assumption. Anyone can learn it. If you can read a book and understand what it means, then you can learn memory technique, because it's basically the same thing. It's imagining, visualizing, understanding, rationalizing something in your head in a meaningful way. That's all it is. And there are just different variations of those techniques on how to efficiently do that. And there's actually a study, I think, people with Alzheimer's disease, when they were when they did some memory techniques for a few months, and scientists took their brain MRI scan again, their Alzheimer's got a little bit better.
Really?
So it's been proven that practicing memory techniques actually does physical things to your brain. Like they did a research on like multiple individuals who never trained their memory before, and then they started doing daily training, like 20-30 minutes a day. After a few months, they retook their brain scan, and then one of the areas of their brain was actually bigger. So it's kind of like muscle. Like you go to the gym, you train your biceps like three times a week. After a few months, your biceps gonna grow.
Yeah.
The same thing. You train your memory, try to like focus, and then try to memorize faster. Try to push yourself mentally. A few months, and then your brain actually grows. Isn't that
cool.
crazy? Like brain actually functions like a muscle, and then you can actually feel it. Like just as you said, like after practicing like that one challenge, you can feel you understand, you have more understanding about how your brain works, right? It's like you go to the gym, you understand how your body works. I have to eat those kind of things. I have to get protein, carbs, this kind of nutrients, and then I have to like feel this pressure, and then I have to tear apart my muscle fibers, and then my muscle fibers fix itself. Then it grows. Like you understand how your body works. It's exactly the same thing as your brain. You memorize, if you feel headaches or like you find it hard to focus, but you do it anyway. It's hard and painful. You rest for a few days, you do it, come back, try to do it again. Now it's not so hard anymore. And then you can feel it's getting easier on your brain, on your mental. So your mental ability is actually getting stronger. You can actually feel it. And that's a great feeling, right?
Like the
when
feeling,
you go to the gym,
feeling of progress is super.
go to the gym, you see progress. It's so motivating. You train your brain, and then you see progress. You can actually feel it. You feel that you're getting less distracted. You feel that you're sleeping. You're not having trouble sleeping anymore. All those kinds of things. It actually does make a lot of like positive changes in our lives.
It's like mental fitness. kind of. There's physical fitness and there's mental fitness, and the thing with mental fitness is you can't really see it. There's no big, like, if you go to the gym you get bigger, but mental fitness, well, I guess you maybe could see it, because I remember when I was checking like an interview with Tony Buzan. Buzan, I think his name.
Yep.
And he was like more than 70, but he was clear, like in his speech and everything, how he presented himself. I didn't see an old person in him. And Dominic O'Brien as well is like they seem sharp, even though they're older, you know. And I think that's one of the things that I see, even with the people around me, like even with my parents or my grandparents. It's like, it almost seems like that this part, or the memory, or anything related to your personality, just slows down once you stop giving it attention. It's like, if you stop going to the gym, you're going to get weaker. And it seems the same with mental fitness. And there was a really good quote. I don't remember who said it, but it was that I didn't understand the importance of memory, or you don't understand the importance of memory until you start losing it. It's like, I think it was the guy that, I think he had a world record also at some point from the States, and he started training after he saw his grandmother get Alzheimer's or something.
Oh, Nelson Dellis.
Yeah, him.
Nelson Dellis actually has his like own campaign, like mountain climbing campaign to help Alzheimer's disease, I think. Yeah, his story is pretty inspiring. I think he was inspired to like learn memory technique and compete because his grandmother passed away from Alzheimer's, I think. So, and then he was dedicated to using memory techniques to help those people, and it's pretty inspiring when you have personal connection with this, learning memory techniques and actually making positive impact.
He stands for something other than just, you know, memorizing things, because I think there is so much potential benefit to it that we maybe even don't understand. But I think the world would be a much better place if everyone knew what memory techniques were, or it was mandatory in school, like first grade, just or in kindergartens. Just kids would love that, because it's fun.
That's in Mongolia, I think. I'm not sure if it's effective or not, but I've heard some people were planning to make memory technique mandatory in schools, and if that happens, I think Mongolia would be the first country in the world to do that and implement that in their education system. So, I'm very curious how that would go. I mean, in the States, no one knows about memory techniques. When I first meet new people, and then I tell them that I'm a memory athlete, I train my memory, I memorize things, then I compete, their first instinct is like, "Oh, you must be a genius. You're just born that way." Like there's this movie Rain Man, right? This guy with photogenic memory, like he can just remember everything. Sure, there might be a medical condition that allows you to memorize everything you see, but that's like 1 in a billion.
Yeah, it's called, what's it called if you have like two senses that are like, when you see, let's say, a number or something, they see it in color. Like two senses are.
Oh, right.
There's a word for it, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, something like that, right? Like when you see something, you can hear the thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like kind of hard to wrap your head around. But for memory techniques, like when I tell people about this, the first thing is like, oh, it must be for entertainment. Like, can you show me this? Can you do this? They're gonna like bring me a book in front of me and then like put it there 5 seconds and then put it away. Okay, what did it say there? Did you memorize that kind of thing, right? For most people, it's mostly entertainment. There's been a lot of TV shows in China called The Brain TV show, and they do like memory challenges, like people compete against each other. And then Yenja, there's which is Mongolian Sweden, who went to Swedish Got Talent and then got to like semifinals or something. And there's just a lot of shows that are actually recognizing memory athletes because they can see the potential that, oh, it's interesting for people. But not also it's interesting to see it's actually possible for everyone to learn and everyone to do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we actually have to let people know that it's not something only these like few people can do. It's everything. It's something that everyone can do. Like,
I'm
not sure how to spread that concept
like I said in the beginning of the podcast, also that there's most people just have this one option that memory is something that you're born with. Good memory is something that you're born with. Maybe it's because of movies like Rain Man and stuff, and they think that good memory equals genius or something like that. And I think it's also with the Rubik's Cube. Because I remember when I was a kid and I saw someone solve the cube, I was like, oh, genius. And you put the label genius on someone that does something that seems magical to you. Right.
Mhm.
But everyone who can solve a Rubik's Cube, now I can solve it. And it's easy. Anyone can do it. Right.
Mhm.
But it's like people, if they don't understand it, they feel so distant from it. Or if it's something that they are extremely weak at, let's say memory, then the distance seems so far from them that they automatically think like, he's a genius, I'm not a genius, this is not reachable for me. But I think whoever tries the memory techniques for the first time, then they will have that, light bulb moment that it's possible for them. Because there was, who was the guy? Joshua Foer?
Joshua Foer, yeah, the book author, yeah.
Yeah,
Moonwalking with
I
Einstein.
read his book when I was like 23 or 4 or something, and I was like, oh, this is amazing, I'm gonna try memory techniques, and I didn't. but
Mhm.
but like, he was just a random guy. In short recap for the listeners, he was a random guy that he was a journalist who went to the US
Memory
memory
championship.
championship. Yeah,
Mhm.
and he wanted to just write about it, but he said that it's a very boring event because everyone's silent memorizing things, so there's not much to write about it. So he wanted to make it more interesting, and then
Mhm.
he decided to also learn and
Mhm.
compete. And then it was, I think, in 1 year he went back and he won the damn thing.
Mhm.
Right. And I think that's the best example because he had no idea that he was going to win. And the fact that he, a random journalist, can get from, oh, what are these guys doing, to actually winning the US championship is just insane.
Yeah, it just shows how much potential we have. I mean, let's compare memory sports as a sport to other sports, right? Let's take weightlifting, for example.
Mm.
It's impossible for someone to discover weightlifting and win a weightlifting championship in 1 year.
Yeah.
It's impossible for someone to learn chess and win anything in 1 year. All these other sports have been around for much longer, and many more people have been actually learning it, practicing it, devoting their lives into it, and then trying to push the actual human limits. But memory sports, it's something that only few people are spending some time on it. It's not like there are any like there must be very few people who are like doing memory sports for a living, right? Like even me, for example, even though I competed in like a lot of competitions, I trained a lot, got some records. I never really thought about memory technique as this is something I'm gonna devote myself into. This is something I'm gonna do full time because the environment is not there. I guess like it's impossible unless you win every single competition. It's impossible to make actually a living out of it unless you coach other people. And then there's just not enough community and like the environment, the awareness for memory sport to actually grow, for people to discover their mental potential and actually discover their limit, right? So if everyone is pushing their mental abilities to their limits, then we will maybe actually find actual geniuses. I mean, maybe that's how geniuses are found, right? I'm not a genius. I know I'm not a genius, but if I can memorize a deep of card in 12 seconds, then an actual genius comes in. I don't know how many seconds it will take. So
do you think that, is there anyone, do you know that anyone on the radar that might break your record? Are there
I mean,
rumors?
I mean, there's a lot of like really top athletes that's been competing. Andrew Musi from Italy. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I saw
He
his video on YouTube as well.
he's actually one of those guys who started only like 2 or 3 years ago. He discovered memories. He used to be a speed cuber, then he discovered memory sports. He trained for like a year or two, and then he won the world championship three times now.
Do you think
And
it probably also benefited him that it was speed cubing and in that competitive environment? So doing the transition from speed cubing to memory techniques
I think
maybe
it
is
helped a
good.
lot. At least like being able to like perform in a competition environment is a like important skill to win championships, right? Yeah, and
Yeah.
Alex Millen from the US, I don't know if he's been training or not, but a lot of people from China, North Korea is actually an interesting example. So the history of world championships is that usually Germany, Sweden, or England, or like mostly Western countries used to win the world championships. And then China came in like for a few years, and then like China became one of the top competitors. And then like there was this only like few countries that actually like competed for like the team world championship, right? As like team overall. And then one year, North Korean, like I think 3 or 4 people just comes and competes at the world championship out of nowhere the first time. They win everything. They win every single thing. They win every single world record.
They were just super
And then
focused.
no one ever heard about them. It was their first competition.
That sounds like North Korea.
Those people probably train 10 hours a day, right?
Yeah.
So it just shows that no one actually trains 10 hours a day. It's just people are not motivated to do it. But if you actually do that, the brain potential, the human potential is, I don't know. It's
not the limit isn't the brain's capability. The limit is how much are you willing to put in the work. Because like I remember that I think Dominic O'Brien's world record in 1992 or something was like 2 minutes. Right?
Yeah, the first world record was 2:20 something.
Yeah. So and now it's 12 point something, and we still don't know. Maybe it's gonna be like if I think about, let's say, 8 seconds, for me that's even more impossible. But it's definitely doable if someone decides to put in crazy hours.
If someone crazy decides that it's possible and go for it.
But it's a very big sacrifice, I think, too.
Yeah, and I mean, speed cards is interesting one because out of every memory competitions, every other competition has a fixed amount of time. And the goal is to memorize as much as information as possible in the fixed amount of time. But speed cards is reverse. You have a fixed amount of information you have to memorize, and then the time you just have to do it faster than everyone else. So it's kind of like a 100-meter dash, right? Sprint. And one interesting thing in the running community that happened is that I think like 100 years ago or something, people thought it was impossible to run a mile under 4 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And then one guy did it, and after that one guy did it, 20-something people did it in the next 6 months.
Yeah.
So maybe
I've heard the story as well.
Yeah,
it kind of says a lot about humans. Probably if someone's gonna do a sub 10 time in memorizing a deck
someone
of
does
cards,
that, everyone else starts doing it.
Maybe.
So.
Do you see yourself, like, what does the future hold for you? Do you see yourself getting back? Let's say someone breaks your record by 0.2 seconds. Would you feel motivated to get back?
Well, I would think so. I mean, there's a competition, and if I know that there's going to be competition and I actually train for it, that's how my motivation comes. So maybe, but it will be hard because definitely you have to train like multiple hours every single day, and then training memory for your brain is kind of hard. It's kind of like gym, right? You have to have a good sleep. You have to drink a lot of water so that your brain can actually function properly. You have to eat healthy, but it's just interesting challenge. So I definitely love memory sports a lot still, but I just haven't been training because there hasn't been any competitions.
So if let's say for someone like me, because I'm gonna continue practicing, obviously not with that intensity that I did for a couple of.
Are you planning to compete in the memory competition?
I don't know because the thing is that I might, but it's the same thing that it seems to be a big sacrifice to get to the top. But I'm currently doing my bucket list, which has 100 crazy things on the list, and I set myself a deadline of 4 years. So currently that list is the only thing that I can focus on.
4 years?
Yeah. So it's kind of like my bucket list, but a bucket list is a bucket list with a shorter deadline. So everything I want to do before I die in 4 years. So that's what my YouTube is about. So it's impossible. That's kind of like memorizing 52 cards in 12 seconds. That's what I'm trying to do with my life. Getting everything done.
You have a list of things you want to do, and then you gave yourself a deadline, which is 4 years from now.
Yeah. And it's not an easy list at all. And memorizing the deck of cards that's like kind of an easy thing that I can do in 24 hours. But there are things like, well, one thing actually is become world class in something. And that might be a memory technique. I got that idea. I think that's doable in this field because I don't know many fields that I would be interested in. And then, like, let's say, take football. I can't be world class in football now at the age of
Right.
32, you know. But memory technique seems like something that I could do it. But then I can't only monofocus on that because at the same time I need to do so many other things off the list.
Does your list have a World Guinness record? Like have like a World Guinness record?
Well, the world class thing even could be something like a Guinness record as
There's
well.
this
I get.
World Guinness record, most amount of cards memorized underwater. And I think Nelson Dellis just broke it this year.
I saw it. Yeah, he did it but the thing is, you have to hold your breath for pretty long.
You can train that. Like
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
you can train to up to like you can hold your breath 5 to 6 minutes if you keep training. And I think the record is pretty doable. It's like less than 2 decks. So if you can train speed cards to under 1 minute and then train your breath holding to 5 minutes.
Yeah, because I think it narrows down the pyramid of people who want to do it, because even if someone is like, oh, I can memorize a deck of cards, I don't want to do it underwater, you know. So that might make it reachable for me. That's a great idea. I saw the article about it and I was like, that's cool, but I didn't think about doing it because I really don't like water. But that makes it even better because my whole list is about confronting things that I don't want to do or have been scared of doing. So memorizing a deck of cards underwater and doing a world record in that sounds. If I die, you gave me the idea.
It's fine. You don't die underwater that easily.
Yeah. One more thing. What would be your tips or something to keep in mind or to avoid if someone is maybe starting out like me and listening?
So let's say you learn about memory techniques. You've never competed. You learn PAO because it's the easiest memory technique out there. For me, the most important thing would be if you're actually considering like using PAO, developing your PAO, and then maybe competing. What I would do if I was beginning is that I would really try to make my PAO list meaningful to me. Like the 52 people, I would try to make them like have some kind of personal connection to me. What I struggled with is that as I trained for years and years, I kept like switching some people, switching some actions, switching some objects or stories. And then the only reason that was happening was that some of those characters I didn't know well. It's just like some like random like cartoon character I saw once I was a child. So since I don't have personal connection to my PAO list, it's really easy to mess it up. So if you really want to make your life easier, polish your PAO list before you actually like train hard. And I think consistency. Try to like train like 15 minutes, 20 minutes every day. Like what I used to do was I hated training, but I always told myself that if I skip training today, then that would actually kill all the progress I've made in the past week. So when I told myself that I'll just please memorize 2 decks of cards and then go to bed, doing something every day helped me a lot.
That is such good advice because that is literally what I am training myself to do right now. Like currently I'm running every day for a year as well. And currently I'm at 6 months. It was 6 months yesterday. And when I started, it seemed absolutely impossible. And it was like every day for a year. That's insane. But I'm seeing the benefits of doing something every day. And I see that I kind of feel that if I miss a day, I lose, like something is lost if I skip a day. And I want to just keep at it. And I don't run a lot, but I would rather even go out and run 100 meters, but I cannot skip one day because the feeling of streak or something,
it builds up.
Yeah, exactly. It builds up and then you get some weird development.
Momentum.
And, that's cool.
I think it's definitely true also for memory training. So, but sometimes taking like a week off is a good thing.
What? Absolutely not.
This is what happened. I used to train speed cards every single day for 2 years. Every single day. I never skipped a day. And then I was at 25 seconds. But I was stuck there for like 6 months. I trained every day, but the fastest I could go was 25, 25, 25, 25.
Okay.
I was so frustrated. I didn't do anything for a week. Then I came back, picked up the card. I didn't expect myself to have improved. I actually expected myself to get worse.
Yeah.
I memorized the card. I didn't look at the time. I put the timer away, recall, got the full deck. Nice. Look at the time, 21 seconds. That's just what happened. So
I guess your brain wants to rest sometimes.
Yeah, maybe it was fatigued or something. But
okay, I have one last question, which is nothing to do with memory techniques or anything, and I want to make it like a tradition on the podcast. And it's something that I've asked people actually for a very long time, and including myself. And if you had one superpower that you could choose out of anything, what would it be? Except memorizing a deck of cards in 12 seconds.
Superpower.
Yeah.
I think it would be teleportation.
Nice. Why?
Like there's a movie called Jumper or Looper.
Oh
something
yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
Jumper, I think. Something like that. Why? Because I can be, I don't know, not having a time to waste commuting seems very useful in life. I can like save so much time. Like 1 minute I can be here in Canada, or the next second I can be in Mongolia with my grandma. And then I don't know, it just seems pretty convenient for travel.
Save time. Yeah.
Just for exploring the world, maybe like go to the pyramid, go to Eiffel Tower, go to Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
In one day.
You still have that. You have the need to be fast. You know, it's just genetic in you.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be my superpower.
And second level of question: would you change that if other people around you, if you know that other people around you can also have superpowers?
So it's like a superhero society.
Yeah. So if you were the only one, let's say teleportation is fun, but if other people also have
superpowers,
yeah, and some people are good, some people are bad,
then something like Superman.
Yeah.
Something like a Superman. I don't know. Because at that point, then I would have to think about protecting my family, right? Protecting myself and friends. So if I'm optimizing not for like personal pleasure, but after optimizing for power and like being able to protect people from other like superpower villains, then the strongest superpower is probably, I'm not the strongest like superhero character I know is Superman. So
you would be a Superman. In a weird way, you kind of are, just in the mnemonics world, memorizing things. But I think it's a wrap. It was a good conversation, and thank you for your time. And it was nice to see. I don't think I've ever spoken to someone that has a world record.
Well, it's probably not your last time, so
hopefully, yeah. So thanks you for
inviting me, Jonas. It was pretty. I was pretty surprised. Like, you just followed me on Instagram and then sent me a DM like, "Hey, I have a podcast. I'm trying to reach out to you." And then I appreciate it. And what you're doing is pretty inspiring. Pushing yourself, and it's like the overall concept, because I've seen like 75 hard people like try to like do some healthy behavior for 75 days, but never seen 4-year plan like the challenge like this.
Yeah. So. Can I also keep, so it's public, can I keep contact with you?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Or you're gonna block me right after?
We'll keep in contact. I'll be watching your journey. And if you have any more questions about memory techniques, feel free to ask me. And I'm very happy to like help people, even like coach at some level, as to coach some kids. And yeah, maybe it started sparking me to start memory training again. So
that would be great. Well, I will definitely continue, and if I decide to do the underwater thing, then I will reach out to you, because you planted the seed in my head. So
yeah, let me know.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jonas. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.